Hi there. I am the CRM Ninja, and on today's episode of the Oops Factor, we have the lovely Zoe Wilson. Welcome to the show, Zoe.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you, and I've heard quite a lot about you in the community, but I think this is the first time we're actually talking.
That's correct, yes. I think we've actually been at events together as well, but we've not actually spoken, I don't believe, have we? South Coast Summit, I think.
Yes, that's possible. I did pop down to South Coast Summit very briefly, yes. It was towards the end of it, and people seemed a little exhausted, shall we say.
I think I was one of those people.
It's quite possible. So, although we've never met, I do understand we actually have several shared interests. One of them is in my background, being smoking food low and slow.
Barbecue. Indeed, yeah. Yeah, so this year we had family staying for Christmas dinner. Well, last year now, I guess. And to satisfy the requirement to have some beef that was well done and some beef that was medium rare, we actually bought a second Kamado Joe smoker. So we've now got two Kamado Joes sitting side by side in the garden.
You have two smokers?
We have two smokers, yeah. My fiance wanted to sell one, but I managed to convince him that we need to keep them both. So we've got a rotisserie set up on one of them, and then the other one has the it's the new model Kamado Joe, so it has the slow roller for cooking low and slow, which is fantastic.
Oh, I hear that's quite nice. I go for an offset one myself, rather than a Kamado Joe. But how did you get into smoking barbecue style to begin with?
I like eating barbecue style food. So my fiance and I we both like nice steak and just kind of grilled meat in general. And then a few years ago, when we bought our first house, I bought him. I bought us tickets for his birthday to go to the London Barbecue School, where they actually teach you all of the basics. So everything from fire control, from starting the barbecue, temperature control. It's a great day. You get to cook all day, and then you get to eat all of the food that you cook, which was brilliant. So we went to that, and at that point, we didn't even have a smoker. And then within about 2 months, we'd bought our first smoker, and that was it. And our best holiday actually was going to Texas and eating our own body weight in food.
Wow, on both counts. I didn't realize there was a London School of Barbecue. I must go and look them up. That sounds quite
fantastic.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's in Peckham, which is quite a strange location for it, in some railway arches.
Well, I guess there are worse places to be in London.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. The food's amazing.
I will take a look at it. I'm quite about the technique and stuff, and learning how to do it. Actually, there's somebody who lives about a mile that way, who set up a smoking business a couple of years ago in his back shed, and very, very successful. I believe he actually wants to open a restaurant at some point around it. He ships all around the UK.
Wow.
Yes,
we might have eaten there. We particularly over lockdown, we've ordered from lots of niche little places around the country that smoke the food and then pack it up and send it off to you.
Well, I'm not going to mention their name live. I don't get paid anything for promotion, regardless. But I will let you know the details afterwards of it, and it'll be interesting to see. So, what's the most ambitious smoke that you've done so far?
So I think ambitious, just in terms of moving parts, was probably Christmas dinner. So we had a big chicken on the rotisserie, and then we had two bits of really, really nice expensive beef, and we just got the timing all wrong. Trying to manage so many different types of meat on two barbecues, it was just horrendous. It was incredibly stressful. But apart from that, probably just a massive brisket. And I think brisket's one of those things you just need to spend a lot of time perfecting it, I think.
Yeah.
I'd love to get an offset. I'd love to try a brisket on an offset, but I think with the cats, we just think it's too dangerous to have it in the garden, because if they jump on top of it, their poor little feet will be burnt.
I would like to think that a cat would have enough sense not to jump on something that's hot.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce you to some Maine Coons.
I do like maine coons. Okay, right. So, well, we can discuss offsets another time as well. So, moving on from smoking meat, low and slow, which is delicious, to the oops factor. What do you have to share today?
So the oops factor. So things that I've learned, things that I've done wrong.
Something like
Yeah,
that. Lessons learned, things you've gone
lessons
through.
learned. Yeah. So I guess there's a couple really. I think one lesson that I've learned that it's it was a hard-earned lesson and something that I try to impart to all of the young people that that I get the opportunity to mentor who work in my team. And the situation was a few years ago. I worked. It was one of the first kind of full SharePoint jobs that I'd done, and I
Okay.
was building an InfoPath form. I was kind of automating a business process. So there was InfoPath, there was Nintex workflows. And I was
Oh, wow.
super proud of this solution that I built. I was so pleased with myself because I'd taken this like horrendous paper process that could take months and months to complete, and I'd created this form and completely automated it. And the IT director said to me, "People won't use it." He said people aren't going to use
Wow,
it.
talk about pouring water all over a fire and dousing the flames of enthusiasm.
And I know, and I was so adamant. I argued with him. I was convinced that I was right. And the reason that people wouldn't use it was because I'd made the user experience worse. So, the people at the end of the process, like the finance people, their life was easier because they had all of these people at the front of the process doing their work for them and filling more info in. And the people at the beginning of the process, instead of like providing 2 bits of information, were having to provide like 10 or 15 or something like that. And he said, people won't use it, they won't use it. And obviously I kind of came around to his way of thinking and realized he was right. But that has stuck with me as kind of one of the hardest lessons about making sure that you've absolutely got the business, like the user experience, front and center, and that whatever you're doing, you're not making that user experience worse. And the sooner people can learn that lesson, the better, really.
User experience is very important. I know I've seen or been involved on the peripheral of various projects over the years in which developers get to drive it. And from a development system point of view, it's perfect. And from a user point of view, it's an absolute nightmare. So when designing things, it needs to be about that user, the UI, the UX for it, and then supporting it with all the processes in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was gutted because what I'd done was a great bit of process re-engineering and low code development, but it just absolutely wasn't the right thing to do.
Got it. No, it happens to the best of us.
And then the other thing as well that I just wanted to share was around imposter syndrome, really. And
Ooh.
I think this is something that we should talk about more often, because I'm quite open. The way that I am with the people that I work with and with my friends is that I lead with transparency, and my fiance probably calls me an oversharer. But I find if I'm honest about how I'm feeling, then it encourages people to kind of open up. And I don't always.
Are we talking about feeling professionally or feeling personally? Because sometimes there can be a bit of an overlap, but
yeah, I think it can be. I think it can absolutely be both.
Okay.
But from a work or a professional perspective, I think it affects women more than it does men. But I've got colleagues who I think are absolutely amazing. They're so talented and they're so good at what they do, and they're just crippled with this anxiety and this lack of belief in their ability and this fear that they're just a fraud waiting to get found out. And for the most part, it's not something that's really impacted me in my career. But I have to say, there's been a couple of times probably over the last couple of years where it has. And I think what's happened is I've got to a more senior point in my career, then you kind of move away from the technical stuff and you get to, you know, like more senior responsibility, and you just think, what am I doing? Am I actually meant to be here? You know, am I meant to be kind of included in this conversation? Are people going to find out that I'm just faking it? And I think, you know, I think that we just need to be open about the fact that everybody feels like this at some point.
That is true. That is true. I've definitely have felt and feel like it at various points in my life, but both professionally and personally in my personal life. So from your experiences along the way, and I just want to say, for if any of those are listening, that I do know some of your colleagues who I think are absolute rock stars. How would you suggest that people either identify that they're feeling, because people may not always understand that that's what they're feeling, and after identifying it, how could they work on it?
That's a really difficult question, I think. I was always a big fan of the fake it till you make it school of thought. And I think when I very first moved into a leadership role about 5 or 6 years ago, that was absolutely what I was doing at that point. You know, I just turned up every day and I faked it. And then after about 6 months, I realized I was actually making it and managing to do the job. Having talked to some professional people, I actually don't think that's the right way to go about it. I think reaching out and talking to people, it's the answer to a lot of things in life. And talking to just a colleague or a mentor or someone that you can be open with can be, even your partner, if you're in a relationship, I think it can be really, really valuable, because they can provide a more objective view of where you are and help you actually recognize the things that you are doing well and the things that you are succeeding at.
That's true. And I think the amazing technical community, and I know that not everybody is an active part on it, or sometimes not even passive part. I've been working with CRM systems. I refer to them as CRM systems. I mean, I'm the CRM ninja, right? So I have to use the word CRM. It's a generic thing, not specific technology. The first 5, 6, 7 years that I was doing stuff, I knew there was a sort of community. I had no interaction with it. And then I got dumped into it and landed, and just the people around you in terms of who could mentor you and guide you and who you can reach out for stuff, I think is really, really so important, especially if we look at the landscape of the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. And I think sometimes it can be helpful to have people who act as like a mentor or a trusted advisor for different things as well. So there may be people from a technical perspective, there may be people from like a soft skills perspective or leadership skills, and knowing who you've got who can help give you that different perspective, I think is really, really valuable. That's
true. It's not, you have to find the one person, you know, one size fits all, that one person has to do everything. You can have mentors in different things and coaches in different stuff in life. Off the top of my head, there's 3 or 4 people who I would go to for different stuff, for advice on different things and things. So yes, definitely important to reach out around you, whether that's in, you know, the company you work in or community or your own network, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would you be your, say, top 3 tips to people to be able to succeed and not feel that they are having to fake it until they make it, or that they're an imposter, apart from get a mentor?
That's a really hard question. Talk about putting me on the spot. The top 3 tips. I'll
take it down to 2 tips if you want, because we already spoke about mentors.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that ability to self-reflect and actually identify what you're good at is super helpful. And I think using lists and break, you know, if you're facing a new challenge and you've got imposter syndrome and you feel like you're struggling, I think using lists and being able to break it down into smaller challenges, it can help you. Yeah, it can help. It makes it easier to tackle, doesn't it? Because you've got smaller chunks, and it gives you a greater sense of achievement as you start to tick things off as well, I think. And it will help you understand that you could probably do more than you thought you could as well.
That's true. That actually reminds me of a joke, which I know we recorded, but I'm going to share this because hopefully it'll brighten up people's day, which is, and I read this in the Reader's Digest years ago. We had the Reader's Digest home, which was an older couple. were talking about how much they could get done, and they suggested making lists of what they could do. So the husband drew up a list at the beginning of the day and went through the day and ticked off about 40 or 50% of the list and felt quite pleased with himself. And then took a look at his wife's list, which was all ticked off. And he went, how the heck did you manage to do it? And she said, simple. It's the methodology. You drew up the list and then went through the list and ticked things off as you did them. And therefore you didn't complete everything. I, on the other hand, completed a task, put it on the list and crossed it out straight away.
Brilliant.
Which I think is a great approach to life sometimes.
Yeah, brilliant. And I talk to people, I give people advice on all of the different productivity apps that you can use in Microsoft 365, but I'm actually really terrible for using them myself, and I tend to just use OneNote a lot. But actually, I think there's nothing more satisfying than writing a list for the first time and ticking off the things that you've already done.
Yes, fully agree on it. I introduced my wife to digital lists. Microsoft do whatever it's called, and she does the shopping on it now. So when I'm out at the supermarket on a Thursday morning, bright and early, and suddenly it goes ping and something else adds to the list, and I can tick it that I got it. She gets notified. It's one of the small ways in which we've made our household a little more efficient.
Brilliant. So one of the things that I love about the To-Do app on my mobile actually is the fact that you can send tasks to it from other apps. So if someone sends you something on WhatsApp or Telegram or something like that, you can share it into To-Do, which is just absolutely brilliant. I know people shouldn't be sending work-related stuff on things like WhatsApp, but if they do, it's really easy just to add it into the right list and remember it. That is true.
It's a very helpful and handy tool to be able to keep track of stuff. Brilliant. Well, Zoe, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experiences and thoughts.
That's all right. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Always good to talk about barbecue and technology.
Oh, very, very much. I'm marrying the two together. If you take a look at my Twitter feed, occasionally you might see a picture that could interest you. Putting the two together. Viewers, we hope that you've enjoyed the episode. Feel free to check out the rest of the Oops Factor episodes, subscribe to the channel, take a look at the blog. And if you might like to come on the show and share your own Oops Factor moment, hit the link that's somewhere in the description below, put your details in, and I'd love to have you on. But above all, have an amazing day.